Good morning, Sunday Funday. Welcome to Big Facts. We got week 7 in a nice Eagles discussion just that we did not get to. I know you're this Homer fan, so I'm just assuming that when the game was 21-10, you just turned on tennis and sat there and started making yourself a drink and maybe went to sleep, turned back on, realized the Eagles won. What'd you think of that game?
Are you off the soapbox now? Calling me the homer? Calling me the homer. Just because I thought they'd beat the almost worst in the league New York Giants does not make me a homer, sir. No, I did. So I was my wife wanted to watch the debate, which was on in the background on the TV. I had the game on my phone. I was watching play-by-play, and then Sterling Shepard made it 21-10, and I said, well, there goes that one. And I don't know, 11:45-ish that night, I was getting ready to go up to bed. I opened up my phone, and Rich from the outlet texts me and says, can you believe that? And I said, oh, something must have happened. What did I miss? Maybe they got a play. One play could have won the game, and they missed it. And then I see 22-21, and I went to bed because I just couldn't watch it. I couldn't watch it that night. So I went back and I watched the entire game. I know you got a ton of stuff that you want to cover about it. I'm disappointed all the way through, front to back, side to side. There's no reason why that game went the way that it did. I feel like we're going to have a couple of common issues with what happened, but I know that you're going to tout a guy for how great he is, and I'll match you on the other side of that one. So why don't you start off? Talk to me about the Eagles game, bro.
All right, well, let's break it down for anybody that might have missed a couple plays. So I want to bring up a couple points. I'm not going to do the whole play-by-play, but the score was 10-7 going into the half. I just want to bring up too that the first play that the Eagles scored on was the same play they ran against the Ravens, and it looked just as ugly. They just happened to be playing the Giants, so they got into the end zone. A couple things were pissing me off all game, which I'll get to. Jake Elliott missed a field goal right before halftime. So realistically, going into the half, we could say what if. I know the score is what the score is. Probably should have been 13-7 going into halftime. Eagles could have made it definitely a lot easier on themselves, along with the Carson Wentz pick. So let's just jump to 21-10. Daniel Jones gets taken out by Monte Teo's invisible girlfriend at about the 10-yard line. Speaking of which, super impressive. He ran as fast as Tyreek Hill did at his fastest point since 2019, which is pretty unbelievable.
I like that, bro. He hasn't been relevant for years. That's not nice.
People don't. Okay. So, 21-10, and I don't turn the game off, but I'm pissed, obviously. And then I'm like, man, they did something last week. They come back when their backs are against the ropes. They don't always win, but they start coming back. So I'm going to see what happens. Maybe I can take some positive because let's agree the game was fucking ugly at that point, right? 21-10, and they did nothing since the first drive of the game, right?
Oh, yeah, it was terrible.
I mean, it was bad. So all of a sudden, and the one thing, and this is a Giants thing. Now, let me start off by saying the Giants they're well coached. I can tell they're better coached than they have been the last couple seasons. They lack talent. And Daniel Jones didn't look great, but he didn't look awful. There's just a lot of missing pieces. Barkley's not there. They're not a bad team. They don't have a lot of skill. They're well coached. So it's 21-10, and the one thing you can't do as the Giants, the only thing you can't do is let a receiver get behind you. The only thing you can't do is let a receiver get behind you for a big play. Carson Wentz drops back, throws a 50-yard bomb to Nelson Aguilar 2.0, and Mr. John Hightower, 5th-round pick, comes down with the ball. And you're like, oh, man, we're in business. That's happened a couple times this year, and we have to give that to Carson as well because Jalen Reagor's had a couple that he's missed them on, and Hightower's dropped a pass in the end zone. He's dropped another 50-yard bomb that he misplayed. So they end up going down the field, and they end up scoring basically from Carson Wentz's dime to Hightower. Now, again, there was 6 minutes left in the game at this point. So the only thing you can't do if you're the Giants is that. So they get down to the red zone. and they get down to the 3-yard line, and they get Wentz outside the pocket, and he basically puts a ball, and it's a short pass, so we don't have to like gloat about it, but he puts the ball in the only place he could where Greg Ward could catch that ball on the run and get it over the goal line. So we got 2 dimes on the drive. Wentz scores a touchdown. They go for the 2-point conversion, I believe, at that point to try to cut it to a 1-possession game. And Doug, for the 3rd time in the game, draws up a QB run for Wentz that goes to the right like he's Cam Newton, okay? So we were watching the Patriots offense, and they do a lot of these QB runs, and for whatever reason, they think Carson Wentz can do the same thing. After getting hit 18 times on Sunday and taking a beating all day Thursday, they drop another run. Jalen Hurts, you have Jalen Hurts for that. I just want to remind the Eagles, if you want to run some draws, you do it with Jalen Hurts. You don't do it with Carson Wentz. So the Giants get the ball, and he's overcoming injuries. He's overcoming the play call, and Giants have the ball. It's 3rd and 6 from their own 48, and Jones throws an absolute dime to Ingram about 20 yards down the field, and my guy short arms a bit. Yeah. So that goes through his hands. Eagles end up getting the ball back. The clock stopped after the pass. It's pre-2-minute warning. There's 2 timeouts. I'm like, oh my God, they're going to come back and they're going to win this game. But I can't get too excited because a lot of times they come back and they don't win the game. So Wentz completes a couple passes, one to Fulgham. Then he gets out and he throws a dime to Richard Rodgers, and he gets into Giants territory. They get down to the Giants 30 off that pass, and they get all the way down to the 3, Justin. All the way down to the 3. 1st and goal, 50 seconds left, still 2 timeouts. All the time in the world. And what happens? Your best player, offensive player on the field, your vet, just basically rips off a defensive tackle's face mask. 15-yard penalty. Your chances of winning this game went from 65-70% when you got 1st and goal at the 3, you have to score a touchdown, to maybe about 10%, and you got 1st and goal at the 18, and you got to get it into the end zone. The only thing, again, that the Giants have to do is keep you out of the end zone because you have to score a touchdown. And what does my guy do, Just? What does my guy do on 1st and goal? Throws an absolute dime over the right shoulder goal line towards out of bounds to Boston Scott over the corner in the only spot that he could throw to. So the last 2 drives, Wentz is in a position where, and I'll let you go after this, you got a left tackle playing his 4th football game ever, not NFL game, his 4th football game ever. They just signed a left guard who was making his 1st NFL start. They moved Herbig over, and then they have Johnson back at right tackle, and he went out, and they had to basically put in the guy that they benched at right guard and right tackle. Miles Sanders is out. Deshaun Jackson breaks his ankle. Alshon's obviously out. So now you're left with your Old Dominion walk-on, Travis Fulgham, Greg Ward, who was a college QB and was on our practice squad last year, and John Hightower, who's your 5th-round rookie. He leads the last 2 drives, 5 for 6, 121 yards, 2 touchdowns on the last drive. What am I missing with Carson Wentz here? Because I don't want to hear, you can tell me, because I don't want to hear that, oh, well, if he didn't play that way the first 3 quarters, and he would have. We praise Nick Foles every time he wins a game when he does nothing all game, and then the last drive of the game is touchdown. Oh, he makes the plays when it matters. What am I missing with Carson Wentz? What did you see in this game? What did you make of the offensive and defensive schemes? Let's break this down instead of doing a play-by-play. Tell me what you saw.
So let's talk about Carson first. So what you're missing with Carson is Nick Foles gets praised for a win, but nobody compares Nick Foles to Brett Favre, who Carson gets compared to on a weekly basis. Here's a fun stat that I heard yesterday while I was driving home from work. Peyton Manning, one of the greatest of all time, right? It's kind of a consensus agreement. Peyton Manning's the top 5 quarterback of all time.
Top 3, probably, yeah.
Peyton Manning, through his first 5 seasons as a quarterback, averaged 21 interceptions a year.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, right now we're getting told that Carson's got, what has he got, 9 or 10 right now? He's on pace to have 24, whatever it is, and the turnover machine, and they need to start looking at how to get up in the draft and get somebody who doesn't turn the ball over. If the Indianapolis Colts felt that way about Peyton Manning, we probably don't have one of the greatest ever. So I just
Carson fumbles too, right? Carson fumbles.
Yeah, his fumbling is a problem. There's no defense of the fumbling. But the interceptions, Carson's averaged 7 interceptions a year through his first 4 years. Now, obviously, a ton of that time was injury. So you could mix in and say, oh, well, if he actually played the whole season, maybe it's 12 or 13. But still, 21 interceptions a year for Peyton Manning through year 1 through 5. So Carson, what you're missing is nobody is touting Nick Foles to be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Nobody's comparing him to any of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Carson Wentz has, and it's not his fault, it's because he was a second overall draft pick. He had comparisons to Brett Favre coming out of college. Strong arm, got a cannon, is able to move out of the pocket, and as long as his guy can run under it, he can make the pass down the field. I have one problem with what you said, and it's Doug's scheme with Carson running in that design quarterback draw. And there's 2 problems there. First and foremost, let's talk about Carson. When I heard Carson Wentz's name the first time, I heard that what Carson Wentz gave you over Jared Goff, who was the consensus number 1 pick, was a better mobile quarterback. Not that he was significantly more athletic, not that it was Lamar Jackson versus Aaron Rodgers,
he's not a pocket passer.
Right.
Yeah.
Carson was that in his MVP season, which I know he finished 3rd in voting, but if he doesn't get hurt, Carson Wentz is your MVP. So for Justin, the 2017 MVP was Carson Wentz. So Carson Wentz's MVP season, there was a ton of those read options, pull down draws, and he used to be able to do it. Now we saw he can still do it, but then he had 4/5 of his offensive line were all pros. He had Zach Ertz full healthy playing the game. He had a big bruising running back in LeGarrette Blount that could pick up a block if he needed him to. There was a lot of other factors, but he was a mobile quarterback. Again, not Lamar Jackson, Russell Wilson, but mobile. He could move. The second part, you can't use Jalen Hurts in this offense. So if you're going to pick a fight with Doug Peterson, I'm going to jump on that bandwagon with you, but for very different reasons. Every single time Jalen Hurts comes onto the field, where is Carson Wentz lined up?
A wide receiver.
And is Carson Wentz ever a threat at wide receiver?
No, that wasn't my point, though.
No, I know. Hear mine through so you can understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you have that same offense ran where Carson gets the snap and Jalen Hurts is lined up at wide receiver, now Jalen Hurts needs to be accounted for. Jalen Hurts is such an athlete that Jalen Hurts could catch a 4-yard slant if he needed to, or a curl out hook to the sideline. That's a real decoy. When you put Carson Wentz out in the slot and Jalen Hurts behind center, everybody in the world, Helen Keller knows that that's a run from Jalen Hurts. So to say that you have Jalen Hurts to run that play, no, you don't. You can't, because that play would have
You do because you don't have to put Wentz in at wide receiver. Why not? If you think you're going to give an option, like you want to make the defense think a little bit, but you think you're going to run the football, then take Wentz out of the game, put a real wide receiver on.
But they won't, because they know the controversy. They know the controversy they started by drafting Jalen Hurts in the first place. And if Jalen Hurts comes into a game, whether it's for a 2-minute drive, whether it's for a wildcat trick play,
one play,
for conversion, if Jalen Hurts throws a dime, you know how Philadelphia is. Every single person
you gotta win the football game.
The very next bad throw Carson Wentz makes, they're calling for his head and they want Jalen Hurts. So you have to understand that with Doug Peterson. Is it right? No, I don't. I agree with you. It's what you do. But the politics to play into this are a big deal that you have to keep in mind. So with 6 minutes left on the clock, when they started that drive back, right? When they started to come back, this is wild. The New York Giants had a 96.4% win probability. In the fourth quarter, in the last 6 minutes of the fourth quarter of the game, you have a 96.4 win probability, and you lost that game. I know that every Giants fan and every Giants supporter on the face of the earth right now is blaming Evan Ingram, and it was a bad drop. Don't get me wrong, but what about the other 3 downs of both of those drives where Danny Dimes couldn't figure it out. And again, I got it going on Evan Ingram, back to the Eagles side of the ball. This team doesn't need Zach Ertz. If Zach Ertz never plays another down for this team, they'll be fine. They don't need him. Richard Rodgers showed you that and showed up. Greg Ward's starting to catch the ball. Travis Fulgham has shown you that he's a real outside option.
You got to get Goddard back, but you don't need Ertz.
Oh,
Goddard's
sure. Well,
healthy.
That's a bonus, right? Goddard is the guy that you're waiting to come back because you don't need Ertz. But that was the big thing I saw, dude. When I went back, I watched yesterday morning when I got to work. I watched the game when I got to work, and Luke was with me, and I said to John Luke, I was like, bro, I don't think this team needs Zach Ertz. Like, watching play-by-play, like, obviously I watched the first 3 quarters live time, but going back and watching the fourth quarter and going back and watching different plays, I don't see what Zach Ertz adds to this offense anymore. I just don't. There's nothing there for me. He's not nearly as good of a vertical threat as Dallas Goedert is. And even when he played, I didn't see any type of run blocking scheme that he ran better than Richard Rodgers could or anybody else could. I don't think this team needs Zach Ertz, bro. I saw a ton of shit that really bothered me. Doug Peterson's play calls beyond calling Carson to run were just questionable at the time. Boston Scott is 5'6" and half as strong as Darren Sproles used to be, and you're running plays that you shouldn't.
What is with the fade? What is with the fade route on the goal line?
With no receiver to catch it. With no receiver to catch it.
Yeah, you see the guy that doesn't even. He's not even your 4th string guy. He was your 5th string guy. You're running a fade route, trying to convert on 4th and goal. So, there's a couple things too. Like, you got to remember, we can play what ifs all day. What if Ingram caught the ball? But what if Jake Elliott makes a field goal? Carson Wentz doesn't throw a dumb interception on 4th down.
You don't call
a fade. They scored anyway. But yeah, I mean, they would have given us more time at that point. But this game should have been a field goal game. When it was 21-10, it should have, could have easily been 21-19. And, that's a mixture of the play calling. It's one bad decision. Jake Elliott's having an off year. The Eagles just brought in a kicker because he's missed a couple field goals over the last couple.
Cut Jake Elliott, bro. Cut Jake Elliott. There's no conversation to have about that. Cut Jake Elliott.
So, there's a lot of things going on, but the constant has been that when his back's against the wall, Carson Wentz on the last 2 drives was almost perfect, almost had a perfect quarterback rating. He's doing it.
Tell me, bro. Tell me, hold on, stop. Tell me. I need to understand. Why is it only the last 2 drives of the game? What happened? Why is it the first 10 plays he looks competent, and then it looks like he just forgets how – it looks like he doesn't even know where he is for 2.5 quarters. And then at the end of the game, he comes up clutch. I need to understand, if you want me to use the word greatness, if you want me to call him a great quarterback and not a very good one, where does he go for half the game?
So let's break this down. First of all, your first drive is scripted. They haven't had success on the first drive, but over the years, Doug has shown that on the first drive of the game, he does that sometimes, and then the offense disappears for 2 quarters. That happens actually more often than not. You have to remember that, as well as the put together offensive line has played, they were not very good for most of the game yesterday. You had a new guy at left guard. Mailata was obviously uncomfortable going against a speed rusher. He was getting beat around the edge for the first half of the game, kind of like Jason Peters was. So, Deshaun Jackson caught a couple balls at the very beginning of the game. Then he breaks his freaking ankle. So your go-to guy is now out of the game, and you're back to relying on your 5th-round wide receiver who can't seem to track balls, Travis Fulgham, who had another good game, and your 3rd-string tight end, along with a makeshift offensive line, which Lane Johnson was in and out of the game as well. So there's a couple things going on with that. We expect him to overcome these things, and he ended up doing it, but we can't expect him to – I don't think we can expect anybody to overcome that offensive line and that group of receivers along with bad play calling for 4 quarters. Now, let's also break down the play calling because we've talked about this before. When you have that offensive line together that's just thrown together, a guy playing his 4th football game, a guy just in off the street at left guard, a rookie here, a rookie there, and then you got all those practice squad wide receivers, you can't open up the playbook because these guys don't know the whole playbook. Fulgham was just brought in 4 weeks ago. Boston Scott's in and out of the game. The linemen are still learning how to play together, so I can't run my full offensive playbook. I have to limit what I'm doing, but that doesn't make up for the lack of creativity I think I see with Doug Peterson and them absolutely knowing what we're doing. But I can imagine that when you have those guys together, especially guys like Mailata and who they had at left guard the other day, Jamon Brown, the last week. I mean, you don't have your running back. Let's not forget, Miles Sanders is not just a 3-down back. He's one of the best pass blocking running backs in the league as well. He picks up the blitz and these linebackers as well as any running back in the league. So it's not, I don't think it's so much that Carson forgets how to play football. It's they plan the first drive, they execute it very well because they practiced it all week, and now he has to put together some type of scoring opportunity, which he did several times, but also we have a missed field goal, and then also he threw a really bad interception. So he gave the ball over twice where they should have gotten points, and then Doug calls a horrendous play on 4th down where if he had gotten points on the last 2 times down the field, it's 21-16 at that point. They don't have to decide to go for it on 4th down. So there's a lot of factors I think we forget because he plays so well at the end of the games that he's still dealing with nobody on his team.
No, but like you're giving me an excuse as far as I'm concerned, right? Because like other than Marshawn Lynch in his hold the fuck up, bro. Other than Marshawn Lynch in his prime, who did Russell Wilson have? Tyler Lockett wasn't great. They didn't have great weapons. But they didn't have great weapons. That's not what they had there.
They had a great defense for a while.
Hold up, bro. Aaron Rodgers, other than Devontae Adams. Other than Devontae Adams, how many receivers has Aaron Rodgers had to throw to? The reason why, what I think you're missing here in this question is, tell me why Carson's great. We agree he's very good. He's a very good quarterback. He's above average. He's a top 10 to top 12 quarterback right now without argument. There's no way to argue against that. But everybody wants to treat him like he's a top 5. And I need you to show me why. Because Russell Wilson doesn't win these games this way. Aaron Rodgers doesn't win these games this way.
That's not true. That's not true.
These guys elevate their team.
Russell Wilson just did the same exact thing last week. He was horrible the whole game, and then he threw a couple dimes to
Russell Wilson's in his 30s, bro, and has been to 3 Super Bowls. And this is not Russell Wilson.
But that's the way he wins sometimes.
Russell Wilson is 5'10" and can't see over his fucking offensive line.
That's not what we're talking about.
Carson Wentz is 6'5", 240 pounds, and has the athleticism to match a guy like Russell Wilson, who is undersized. If Russell Wilson can make,
we're not talking about physical
vision, why can't he?
You're asking me a question, which is, what is Carson Wentz great? What makes him great? I'm not saying he's a top 5 quarterback. It's obvious right now that a guy like Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson are both better than Carson Wentz. It's not even arguable. You can't even argue that. My point is, once guys start to get healthy, the offensive line gives him time. We've been talking about him for years right at that 5. We compare him to guys like Deshaun Watson over the last couple years.
You're going off again on the same tangent, bro. Wait a second. What I'm telling you is those top 5 guys, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, they don't need to wait till their offensive line is better. They don't need to wait until they get a weapon.
When have they ever had all 4 guys out on their offensive line?
No, can you tell me more than 2 people that played on New England's offensive line over the last 10 years?
No, but they're starters. New England's not my team. I can't name 5 starters on any offensive line.
Right, but you know that Brian Bulaga played for the Ravens for 10 years. You know that they have stalwart guys. They don't have those everywhere. Aaron Rodgers has a right guard that's a fucking stud. He has a left tackle that's above average.
Bakhtiari.
And nothing else.
His left tackle's an all-pro. Bakhtiari?
He has a left tackle. He has a right guard and nothing else. That's 2/5 of an offensive line. So again, I ask you, when has Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or Tom Brady or Ben Roethlisberger or Drew Brees run the list of the greats, bro? When have they been able to sit back and say, "Oh, my offensive line was too hurt, so now I don't have to elevate my players around me"?
Well, no. But when have they ever had to deal with 4 starters out and all their wide receivers and their all-pro tight end out on offense?
Dude, first of all, again, we know. Here's a couple things we know. We know that Greg Ward can play the slot because he did it last year. So is he the best slot receiver in football? No, but he's an adequate one.
Slot works if you have guys on the outside.
Hold up. Travis Fulgham is a real outside receiver. We just talked about this the other day. We agree. He has an outside receiver. Again, is he a top 5? No, but he's adequate. He had Deshaun Jackson come back. Deshaun Jackson looked good in the 5 plays that he played, but there still wasn't a big difference in the offense. There were 4 or 5 yard dink and dunker plays. He didn't hit anything outside. John Hightower finally catches a 50-yard bomb. He has talent around him. This is the problem. A great quarterback takes a good player and also makes him great. A very good quarterback is only as good as what you put around him.
Okay. So there's a difference between making your wide receivers great, leading them into passes, making sure they're in the right spot, and then having a guy at left tackle that's never played football before. So we gotta come to some.
And I'm the homer. And I'm the homer.
We got to come to some type of medium here, because you're pulling a guard off the street. We're not talking about backups. We're talking about 3rd and 4th string guys and guys that haven't played football. If we were talking about, Lane Johnson's in, but our left tackles are 2nd string, and Kelsey's in, but our right guards are 2nd string, and then the left guard's a rookie, then I can start, piecing stuff together. But when you're on your 4th left tackle, your guy off the street left guard, your rookie right guard, who's been very good, so he's going to be a starter, and then your all-pro right tackle goes out, and you have to replace him with your 3rd string guard, I got to give my guy a break.
Let's stop talking about the offensive line for just a second, because the offensive line is protection, not skill. So we need to talk about skill positions.
You need protection. No, because you hold up, because the starts with the line. It doesn't start with the wide. You can't get the ball to your wide receivers if you don't have an offensive line.
Are you done yet? Because I haven't told you the offensive line isn't important. The offensive line is important. The offensive line is important. But here's the fact. Carson Wentz has taken more sacks after 6 seconds than any quarterback in football this year. So don't fucking say offensive line when he has protection. That's a bullshit argument, the straw man argument, because the starter's out. Now, my point. Our producer threw up Aaron Rodgers touchdowns, right? So a name came up in this list. What you see in great quarterbacks, right? I'm going to give you a couple of guys. Wes Welker. I'm going to give you Jordy Nelson. And I want you to tell me what those 2 guys have in common. The second that they left their top 5 quarterback, burned out of the league. They were worthless.
Mm-hmm.
Because a great quarterback elevates the play of his position players. A great quarterback does that. Carson Wentz is not a great quarterback in 2020. Could he be in the future? Absolutely. But Carson Wentz has never elevated his players around him.
So you're telling me that the guy that before this season got cut from wasn't good enough to play for the Detroit Lions, and the tight end that wasn't good enough to play for the Washington Redskins haven't been elevated by Carson Wentz, like Travis Fulgham was supposed to be an all-pro. He got cut by the Lions. Richard Rodgers got cut by the Redskins. He wasn't good. They weren't. I'm answering what you just said. You said, who does he elevate? He elevates guys that he just signed off.
No, bro, those guys get plays in Philadelphia. They didn't get plays in those teams. When you get reps, you get production.
They weren't good enough to be on the squad. That's why they got cut.
That's not true at all, and you know that that's not what it's about, bro. You think that players get cut just because of how good they are? You think a team like Detroit, who's not competing for anything, or a team like the Washington football team, who's
Travis Fulgham was a walk-on at Old Dominion,
doesn't purposely ignore somebody who might be able to contribute? Those teams aren't competing.
Now we're
just straw man bullshit argument, bro. Come with real verifiable information. Because somebody else cut a guy? Come on, bro. The
Detroit Lions thought he
prison. Michael Vick came in and was an almost MVP. Come on, man.
The Detroit Lions thought this guy wasn't good enough to be on their active roster.
Where do you see that? Where is a coach or a front office member of the Detroit Lions saying that?
He got cut. That's what happened.
Right, so you're reading into the reason why he got cut. You're guessing why he got cut.
Why did Brown get cut last week?
Who, Javon Brown?
Why did Jamon Brown get cut?
Because he was a turnstile on the offensive line.
Because he wasn't supposed to be on an NFL field. He wasn't good enough to be on an NFL field. That's why you cut players. So what are we talking about?
What did you
cut
say here?
we cut all pros now? We just cut them off the team?
So tell me this. Where did Greg Ward go this year? Because last year, Travis Fulgham was Greg Ward. If Carson Wentz is such this elevation player and he gets all this out of his players,
that's why Greg Ward's here.
Greg Ward was picked up off the scrap heap. Greg Ward was looking like a number one outside receiver, and then what happened? Greg Ward
wasn't looking like a number one. He was the only option.
Greg Ward was the only guy to catch a ball in the last 5 games last year that he had to throw to. So Greg Ward looked like he was going to be an all-pro receiver. And what do we find out this year when better players came? Greg Ward is at best a slot receiver. Come on, bro. Carson Wentz does not elevate his players around him.
So you're telling me that Carson Wentz elevated Greg Ward last year is what you're telling me, because he looked like a number one last year, and now we get some talent and he's still in the slot.
We thought Carson Wentz elevated Greg Ward. We thought Carson Wentz elevated Greg Ward. That was the argument, remember? For 5 weeks,
he still is. He had a great game. Did he not have a really good game last week?
1 in 6. Now, anyway, Carson Wentz last year looked like he took practice squad receivers and made them real players. Where are any of them? Nowhere. Do you know why? Because it's easy to look good when you're the only option. Travis Fulgham might not be as good as what we're seeing right now, because now he's the only option.
And Wentz is elevating his game.
That could be Dwayne Haskins throwing that football, bro. He's the only guy to catch it. You're putting all this shit on Carson like it's not these guys going out week in and week out playing. Is Carson Wentz elevating Jordan Mailata? What a fucking stupid argument.
No, you can't. It's his 4th football game. What's he supposed to do? That's the coach's job to do that. But you had a guy throwing the football to another guy, then you're elevating their play. Just same way Aaron Rodgers done with.
I can't argue with you anymore, bro. Listen to me. Carson Wentz in 2020, right now today, is not a great quarterback. He is very good. He is on the 2nd tier of quarterbacks. He's very good. He's not great, and he's proven it to you. And all I have
he can be on 2nd tier. I'm not arguing.
4-1. 4-1. Average at best.
I'm not arguing that he's a top 5 receiver right now. That's not my argument. But let's move on.
He's never been a top 5 receiver because he's a quarterback, but that's okay.
Or a quarterback, yeah. So
we got to take a break, bro.
Okay. Quick break for Big Facts. We got some stuff we have to do, and we'll be back in a couple minutes. All right, it looks like we are back. So couple more things, and we'll move on to our Week 7 picks. I just wanted to point out, so we get on Jim Schwartz a lot, and rightfully so. And we wonder why he doesn't blitz and why he doesn't disguise his coverages. It seems really easy for the quarterbacks to read. Daniel Jones is obviously a quarterback that doesn't do very well under pressure. And I didn't see a lot of blitzing, but that offense isn't very talented and didn't seem to do much with them anyway. Now, there was one play, which was the Jalen Mills interception. It's the only disguised fake blitz that I've seen all year. So I just wanted to point it out. He brings 6 guys up to the line, looks like it's blitz. Everybody backs off. Daniel Jones thinks that he has to get the ball out hot, and because he sees the blitz coming, he sees the linebackers up at the line. He darts a little short throw and tries to get it out quickly, goes off his receiver's hands into Jalen Mills. The first time I've seen Schwartz do that all year for whatever reason, disguise any type of play that he was doing, and it worked out. And I was watching the play, and I was like, I knew it was coming, and I haven't seen it from Schwartz in 3 years. I'm like, why can't we do more of that? This defense, as well as the line is played, as well as Slay's played, I feel like the defense should be better than they are, and a lot of that falls on Schwartz. Did you like what you saw from the defense before we get to our Week 7 picks?
I liked it better. No, I still didn't like it. Jim Schwartz is just like Doug Peterson. They're average to above average coaches. Their coaching staff is garbage. 4 fucking years I've watched mistake after mistake after mistake get repeated. And as long as that happens until another Frank Reich or John DeFilippo comes, this is what we've got, Eagles fans. That's all I've got on the Eagles. I'm too pissed off to talk about it anymore now. Carson Wentz is fucking great.
So the Eagles are in first place, at least until the end of the day today. And we are going to give you our Week 7 picks. I think we did pretty well last week, Just. I think you might have had 3 losses in total last week. And I think I might have had 5 in total last week. Against the spread, we did pretty well. Breaking down Week 7, going down the list, we have the Browns and the Bengals. The Browns are giving 3 points to the Bengals. Who do you got?
I'm going to go Bengals +3.
Okay. I got the Browns on this one. I think the Browns are pretty pissed off. I think Mayfield played a pretty bad game last week, and it's just one of those games I feel like talent's going to win out. The Bengals have fallen off pretty hard since those first couple games. I'm still impressed with Burrow, but I just don't like them as a team anymore. Washington football team, said it right, Washington football team, +1.
Way to go, buddy.
+1 against the Dallas Cowboys.
Washington plus. I can't pick the Dallas Cowboys after what I saw last week. Until Dakota Prescott to ankle heels, I can't do it.
Yeah, it's hard with that line, that D line going against that makeshift offensive lines, kind of the same way they wrecked us. Atlanta -1.5 to the Detroit Lions.
I know that Atlanta came through for me last week, and I picked them 4 in a row to finally get there. But even with what I saw, I don't see, not that Detroit's a world beater by any means, but I think Detroit handles this game. I think they win outright. I'll take the 1.5.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm going with Detroit. Panthers and New Orleans Saints. New Orleans is giving Panthers 6.5. Panthers. So I'm taking the Panthers for a couple reasons. I like the way they're coached. I like the way that Bridgewater is playing. Michael Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders are out for Drew Brees, and Drew Brees to me does not look the same this year. I think the Panthers could win this game outright, so I'm taking the 6.5 points.
I'm not coming back off of the Saints are in a drop-off season. We've seen it week in and week out. I can't not say that. But the Saints can't win by any less than a touchdown against this team in division. The Saints -6.5. I gotta give Drew Brees one last shot. I took Atlanta 4 weeks in a row. I gotta give Drew one try.
It's a tough game. I just don't like him with both his wide receivers out. Bills -10.5 with the Jets. It's always rough games with the Jets. They lost 24-0 last week.
This will be the only time it happens. All my New York Jets fans, I'm going to take the 10.5, and they're going to cover.
I got the Bills just because Sam Darnold's back. They scored 0 with Joe Flacco last week, so they're obviously going to get a little offensive spark if there is such thing as an offensive spark in New York Jets terms. But I'm going to go with the Bills.
They're
Houston
also playing
plus
a horrendously overrated defense. Everybody talks about Buffalo's defense. I mean, week in and week out, we talk about the numbers. The numbers just aren't there. It's a different team you see on the field versus the numbers. The Jets lose this football game, just so everybody understands. But I really genuinely believe I might pick this up by a half point because I think this might be a 10-point game. So I don't see it being a destroying, crushing loss to New York. I think they're going to compete a little bit. Sam Darnold's got one shot right now, and it's literally from now to the end of the season to convince the New York Jets not to draft Trevor Lawrence. So it's going to be what it is.
The only way that's happening is if he starts winning, and for his sake, he probably wants to keep losing, so he gets traded somewhere else. Green Bay got annihilated last week by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are giving 3.5 points to Houston, who seems to be playing a little bit better under Crennel.
I don't like how you set that up. That sounds like you're telling me that you're going to take Houston plus 3.5.
You got it.
Holy shit! This is the
Taken.
Packers all day.
That's my upset. One of my upsets.
This is the Packers all day long. I don't know what the fuck you're looking at, but this is the Packers all day long.
We will see. Cardinals are getting 3.5 points. They are playing your boy Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks.
Seahawks cover, bro.
I am going with the Cardinals plus 3.5. I think this is the game that is a little bit too much on offense for the Cardinals are going to score points against Seattle, and this is going to be one of those games where Russell Wilson's not going to be able to absolutely torch the Cardinals and make a comeback here. I like the Cardinals plus 3.5. New England minus 2.5 against your buddy Rich's Niners here.
Of the week. Upset of the week. The San Francisco 49ers plus 2.5, but we won't need it because they're going to win the game outright.
New England minus 2.5, lock of the week.
Oh, shit.
Belichick is going against his boy that he groomed in Jimmy G with a second week removed from coronavirus, Cam Newton. The defense will play well. They'll know exactly how to stop Jimmy G because Belichick trained Jimmy G. That's my lock of the week, New England giving 2.5 to the Niners. Denver plus 7.5 going against Kansas City.
I'm going to say it, even though it shouldn't need to be. Kansas City covers 7.5. On to you for the dumb shit.
That's not dumb at all. Denver's at home. They do have that home field air advantage, that altitude over there. They're going to make it a close game. KC's got some injuries. Their best tackle's out, Mitchell Schwartz. Sammy Watkins is out, and Denver is getting back their number 2 corner, AJ Boye. This week they're getting Noah Fant. Melvin Gordon, KJ Hamler are all coming back, and they are at home. So I think KC 2-3. Denver Broncos. They've been injured all year, so I'm not. They're 2-3. Kansas City's 5-1. I think they cover that 7.5 point spread. I don't think they win the game. Tampa Bay, after a dominant performance last week where they didn't commit any penalties at all, going up against the Raiders, who just beat Kansas City. Tampa Bay -4. Who do you got there?
We're going to go TB -4.
Yeah, I'm going with Tampa Bay too. Tennessee and Pittsburgh in what most are calling the game of the week. Tennessee is getting 1.5. Pittsburgh is home, I believe.
Why don't you go ahead? No, I want to hear you first.
I got Tennessee. I'm going to take the points for whoever's getting the points. I like Tennessee as one of my favorite teams in the league and a potential Super Bowl champion.
Reiterate the crazy shit you said last week. What is Tennessee going to do this year?
They're going to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs.
And they're going to do what? They're going to be the representative of the AFC in the Super Bowl?
Correct.
I'm going to make you say it every week until it sounds crazy in your own brain. Pittsburgh -1.5.
Chargers, Gardner Minshew's at risk of getting benched. My boy, the stash. Chargers are actually giving 7.5 points to the Jags, and the Chargers are looking pretty good this year. Who do you got?
Chargers -7.5.
I'm going with that as well. Bears, Rams, your boy, Nick Foles.
Your boy, Nick Foles, homie. I saw the list before I wrote my picks down. Go ahead. Talk about your boy, Nick Foles.
All right. So the Bears typically keep games close. They have a good defense. I don't trust that the Rams are really that good this year. They're inconsistent. So I'm going to go with the team with the better defense that's getting 6 points in my upset of the week because I actually think they're going to win outright, but I'll take the Bears +6.
The Rams are going to win this game by 10.
I don't know. I don't know about all that, but we'll see how Nicky Foles does here. Nick Foles got a little history beating those Rams over there, just, you know. It's a little history of beating those Rams, history of beating those Tom Brady led teams. So we'll see. Speaking of the Tom Brady led teams, we got to talk about this guy that's been out of the league for a couple years, little crazy sumbitch, some might call him. Antonio Brown signs a 1-year deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, the last time we saw Antonio Brown was in New England for one game. He had 8 targets, 4 catches, 54 yards, and a touchdown. He now gets added to a roster that's already got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, Leonard Fournette in the backfield, and TB12 is starting to get comfortable with his guys. What do you make of the Bucs swooping in when everybody thought the Seahawks were going to get him and signing Antonio Brown, who, let's just remind everyone, Antonio Brown is only 32, so he's about a year removed from actually playing a football game. But his last full season, he had 1,300 yards, 15 touchdowns. I don't think physically he's that far off from that. Mentally, he might be. Do you like Tampa Bay more as a Super Bowl contender with the signing of Antonio Brown?
I don't think it changes anything, dude. I mean, we're talking about Mike Evans and Godwin down there already. I think that if anything changes, one of your young guys gets lost. And what does that mean for your young guy wanting to come back after the end of the current contract he's on? I see this again as Tom Brady just flexing muscle to the ownership and the management of Tampa Bay, saying, I want who I want, and go get this guy because I said so. And I got to tell you, I don't know of a team in the NFC that's going to be able to stop a Tom Brady-led playoff run, but they're not beating Baltimore in the playoffs, and I don't like Baltimore. They're not beating Kansas City. Not that Tennessee's going to get there, but if they do, they're not beating Tennessee either. They're a very flashy offense. Their defense is good, don't get me wrong. But the flashy of their offense is so fucking inconsistent. I mean, one week you've got Tom Brady throwing 30 for 36 with 420 yards and 5 touchdowns. And then the next week, Tom Brady's 17 for 37 with 2 interceptions and 160 yards. There's no consistency. There's no cohesiveness. It's a team that looks good in the regular season. It's not a team that's going to go far. So I don't think it changes their playoff chances. They're going to make the playoffs, but they're not coming out of the NFC, I don't think.
So it looked, obviously, there's a couple things to take into consideration here because Antonio Brown was in, obviously, the New England's locker room last year because he ended up playing a game with them and then getting released again. So there was obviously something that Brady loved about this guy to be able to go to management and go to Bruce Arians, who, you know, opens up his offensive playbook anyway, and says that I want this guy, I want Antonio Brown. The first thing about that is obviously they had a connection on the field. His first game back, he hadn't played football in a year. In his first game back, he scores a touchdown. When you have a guy that's an all-pro like that, who was one of the greatest receivers of his generation, obviously I think we'd all agree on that. He knows where to be on the football field. He's going to know how to run routes. They're not going to have miscommunications on option routes. Brady likes vets that he can trust. And I think this does a lot for him because Godwin's still young. Mike Evans is a vet, but he's been injured a lot. So it gives you obviously depth there as well. And it gives you another veteran presence. Do I think it's going to lead to them scoring like a ton of more points? No, but I think Brady wanted him to maybe become his favorite receiver because they seem to be on the same page. Is he better than Mike Evans right now? Probably not right this second. He's 32 years old. He hasn't played football in a year, but I think he can get back into shape and get on the same page with Brady, and I think Brady really wants him there. I'm curious to see if he stays off social media, if there's any rumblings that start coming from Tampa Bay. We're halfway through the season, so it could help in the playoffs as well. I mean, these wide receivers have a history of injury, so they're going to need that depth. And I think Brady is they have to be the favorites at this point in their division with that signing. And they have a rough schedule coming up. So we'll kind of see after this week. They got the Raiders this week, but then the schedule is the Giants, and then they play the Saints, the Panthers, the Rams, the Chiefs. They have a couple tough games, but then they end the season with the Vikings, Falcons, Lions, and Falcons again. So it's like you're looking at 4 victories at the end of the year. How do they do in these games? And then what happens to Antonio Brown after this year? Another question is, this deal is obviously through the end of the year. How well do you think he's going to do? And if he does put up, let's say he's average but not great, does he get another year contract? Can you see a team
we talked about this. We talked about this yesterday. I don't know how, if you are, so Tom Brady's planning on 45, right? We've heard it 1,000 times. Tom Brady's going to play till he's 45 and then he'll retire. For Tom Brady, that's this season plus 2 more. So if Tom Brady wants a guy like Antonio Brown, if that's who he wants, and there's chemistry there, and I said to you, if Antonio Brown comes in, plays 8 games, and gets 45, 50 receptions, 700, 800 yards, and 8 to 10 touchdowns, it's obviously going to be better than any of the singular production of any other receiver on that team, because Tom Brady spreads the ball around everywhere he's ever been. When he was in New England and had Wes Welker was the safety blanket, but Wes Welker wasn't having 1,600-yard seasons. You know what I mean? He spreads the ball around, what he does. If he locks in on Antonio Brown and they've developed a chemistry that shows that on any given play they can break the game open, you have to bring Antonio Brown back. If you want your 43-year-old quarterback to be effective next year into his 44th year and the year after into his 45th year, whatever guys are around him that make him as competitive as he is, you need to keep. So what does that do for the rest of that team? Obviously, Antonio Brown comes back and looks like an all-pro. You can't afford to pay Mike Evans the big deal he's on, plus what you're now going to need to pay Antonio Brown, plus what Godwin's going to get eventually in the next couple of years. So somebody is the odd man out. They don't have a shitload of holes everywhere else. Their offensive line's decent. They have an okay tight end. Gronkowski's obviously well to the tail end of his career. He showed you he doesn't got much left in the tank, but again, another Brady signing. They could use a running back. They could use things, but like you gotta imagine you're getting rid of. I think it's Mike Evans. You get rid of the bloated contract of the guy that doesn't show you that he's the all-pro that you paid him to be. He just doesn't have a chemistry that I see. So I mean, yes, to answer the question, if Antonio Brown comes back and balls, you got to bring him back. There's not a choice, because you know that somebody else is going to pay him money. And if Atlanta, for example, interdivision opponents, Matt Ryan's going to get a replacement drafted this year. Obviously, we're there now. Antonio Brown maybe wants to go play somewhere in Atlanta and be living in Atlanta. You want to put Antonio Brown and Julio Jones together with a good young quarterback? Like, you have to avoid all of the bad outcomes. And in order to do that, you just got to fucking pony up, bro. Pay the guy. So I think, unless he comes out and looks like shit, I think he's going to be a buck until Tom Brady retires.
So they would probably have to get rid of the Evans contract if they wanted to sign Antonio Brown to any sort of lengthy deal. I don't know if, given his history, if 8 games of no off-the-field issues and some production is enough for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers or any team to go, oh, we're signing this guy to a multi-year contract, because he's finessed contracts twice over the last 3 years and forced his way in and out of situations. So it's hard. Brady's going to have him in line for this year, but even if he produces, I would have an issue. They're going to want to offer him 1-year deals until he proves that he's either back or mentally stable, and someone else is going to give him a multi-year deal.
If Tom Brady says give him 3 years to match another team, they're going to do it. It doesn't. Tom Brady is LeBron James runs the Lakers, right? Like Jeannie Buss is the head of the team. LeBron James runs the Lakers. If LeBron James says give J.R. Smith a 5-year contract, guess what J.R. Smith's getting? He's getting a 5-year contract. So it's the same concept. Tom Brady's the guy who makes those decisions, especially when it comes to offensive skill position players.
So you think they let go of a 27-year-old Mike Evans for a 32-year-old Antonio Brown if he produces?
If you see that Antonio Brown is giving you what you thought Mike Evans would, absolutely.
So elite, he have to put up elite numbers for the second half of the year.
Listen, dude, in his games, 50 receptions, 850 yards, and 10 touchdowns in 8 games is fucking elite.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
Randy
Especially
Moss
coming
numbers.
not
That's elite.
yeah, well, especially not playing for basically a year and a half at this point. It's weird that he's obviously done, and he's been preaching about this. You see him tweeting at Goodell sometimes, but then he stops. He hasn't gone off on any tangents. He seems like he's done everything that he's needed to do from a media capacity and a personal capacity to be able to earn a chance to get back in the league. And nobody's batting an eye so much this time around because we haven't seen any of the antics over the last year. It's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be fun to watch or entertaining or what the actual word is, but to see how this plays out with someone as good as Tom Brady being in Tampa Bay is going to be very interesting. And I think the way that defense is playing, if you can get anything out of Antonio Brown, especially if all the wide receivers are healthy, I mean, a lineup with, I know Gronk is at the tail, seems like he's at the tail end, but he's really not an old guy. He's just been removed from football for a year. So we'll see if anything plays out eventually with Gronk. But they have a couple tight ends, and then you're going to have Mike Evans, Godwin, and then Antonio Brown in the slot. It just seems like a nasty combination, and I'm excited to see what he can do because I can guarantee you, even though he's a maniac, he worked harder than almost anyone I've seen work in practice, training camp. There's reports about how hard he works. I can't imagine he's that far out of game shape where he's not going to be able to produce almost immediately if he's still got it left in the tank. And I think obviously we just saw him play last year, 8 targets, like I said, 4 receptions, 52 yards and a touchdown in his first game back and then gets cut. So I can't imagine that he's not going to put up numbers, and I'm excited to see what the Bucs do with him. I'm kind of disappointed too that he didn't go to the Seahawks because I think that would have been fun with DK and Lockett over there.
I'll tell
and
you
Russell
honestly,
Wilson
I
being
think,
in his
I think
prime.
what that was is DK. I don't think that they wanted his influence around DK.
Yeah, I mean, DK, one of the reasons he fell in the draft was because people thought he had some off the field personality issues. So having a guy like Antonio Brown coming in, I'm an all-pro, and the attitude that we've seen over the last couple of years, I don't think that rubs off on Evans. Brady's not going to allow that to happen. I don't think Russ would have either, but DK could have easily been in that wide receiver room and started to go off. So I can agree with that. But they have taken chances also on who was the guy from the Brown, Josh Gordon, and guys like that. So you thought that might happen. It was interesting. I saw on Twitter just
smoking weed though. It's different.
Josh,
as Stephen A would say, stay off the weed. He just couldn't do it.
Weed. Yeah, I saw on. It was funny. There was a guy that tweeted. I think it was Matthew Berry from NFL Network. Adam Schefter gets reports before anybody. He's the guy that agents call and be like, hey, you're going to break this news for us. He's developed that reputation in the league. And a couple days ago around 1 p.m. when he first got the news, before he breaks it, he signs Antonio Brown to his fantasy team off waivers and then breaks it. So imagine being in a fantasy league with Adam Schefter and he's the one breaking everything. And you know what's going to happen off waivers. It's kind of funny.
So I got a couple things we got to get into before we're done, bro.
Yeah, do it. Let's go.
So first of all, a little bit of baseball, and then we're going to talk about the great NBA season coming back. I got into I don't want to call it an argument. I'll call it a dispute. I got into this dispute with a friend of mine the other day, big baseball guy, who is Mike Trout's biggest fanboy. And when I watch Mike Trout play, I cannot take away from the fact that singularly, he's probably one of the most gifted baseball players, quite literally, of all time. But I'm starting to
an Eagles fan.
Well, that's just a bonus, right? Jersey kid. I watching this World Series, bro. I asked him how. I asked to basically form an argument and tell me how I'm wrong, and tell me how Mike Trout is better than Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts is probably one of, if not the greatest baseball players I've ever watched in my life. I mean, you talk about a 5-tool player. He's got power. He's got contact. He's got speed. And when he comes to bases at will, and he just changes fucking everything. Like, he was single-handedly the reason why Boston was competitive. And now he comes to a Dodgers team that, and we know, obviously, being an NL team with the Phillies, for a decade, bro, we were who the Dodgers collapsed to. The Dodgers just year after year after year, bro, no matter how good Clayton Kershaw was, no matter what guys they say, Adrian Gonzalez, all these guys that they got, Josh Turner, they can't get it done. Mookie Betts comes in and brings them to a World Series. And listen, I'm not going to say that they're definitely going to win this championship. I don't know. I don't want to speculate that. But Mookie Betts is the best player in Major League Baseball. I mean, the impact that he's got and the skill level that he brings to the game is just fucking incredible.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch Betts, and it's interesting because you also have to think about the teams that he's played for and the talent that have been around him. You know, obviously those teams have high payrolls. They can surround him with some talent, whereas Trout's been over there for years and, you know, single-handedly almost demolishing everybody he's faced. And Trout's obviously a five-tool player as well. When you watch, you know, Mookie throughout the playoffs, it's hard to pick one. I think people like the fact that you watch Trout hit bombs running into walls in center field, and Mookie does some of the same things, but I think it's the physical presence of Trout. It gives people like subconsciously this air that he's like on this next level. And quite honestly, from what we've seen, I don't think the gap is much smaller if there is any at all. And I know you're going with Mookie, but we tout Mike as like the no-brainer absolute best, and there can be a discussion about it, obviously. So, you know, both very valuable to your franchise. And I think you make a great point. You go from one team to the next, and you're just making playoff run after playoff run no matter where you go. That says a lot about you as a player. LeBron James does the same thing in the NBA that Mookie's now doing right now, and he's locked into the Dodgers for 10 years. So you can make an argument either way, and I'd still want Trout as my first pick, but their gap is minimal if there is one.
Yeah, you're not upset if you get Mookie. That's the point.
No, of course not.
Now listen, next show on Wednesday, bro, I would like to, we're obviously going to cover our picks. Let's go over some of the games, set up Thursday Night Football for our first half. But the National Basketball Association's draft is on November the 18th. And I want to spend a good amount of time on the next show going over more specifically the Sixers and what we're looking at in that draft for where they are and what they're looking for. Just to start to set it up, and as we get closer, I really want to do, between you and I this year, I want to do a mock draft of where we think everybody's going to go, potential trades, all that kind of shit. But next episode, I'd like to get into the draft a little bit, get into when the season's rumored to be confirmed to be starting, and start to ramp back up into basketball and see what we can figure out there.
Now, one thing I have to admit about being wrong, and not necessarily wrong, but my rankings being wrong. So if you remember, one of the things before we started this podcast was we were going into the NFL draft, and we had to rank wide receivers. And, you know, I had Judy there, and I had CeeDee Lamb there, and T. Higgins was in my top 5, and I loved Rager. I thought, and we'll see how that goes. Once he's back from injury, gets some time under Carson, he could still end up being a great wide receiver. I was not in on Justin Jefferson, and he's doing things right now on the Vikings offense is not bad, but with an inconsistent quarterback, Thielen on the other side, Justin Jefferson's balling out. I have to give him some credit. He's also played outside more than I thought he was going to be able to. He's not getting jammed up at the line. He's beating the press coverage. He's doing things that I didn't see him do in college, and I was told he was having trouble doing in training camp. So tip of the cap to Justin Jefferson. I was wrong about him. We'll see how he does over the next 5 to 10 years, but it looks like he's going to be a hell of a player and a true number 1 or number 2 on that Vikings team.
I'm not quite giving him the next 5 to 10 years yet. I need more than 6 games, but I will tip the cap also and say I'm impressed by what he's accomplished.
He's impressive. So that's all we got. Final thoughts. So the Redskins and the Cowboys game is going to be the Washington football team and the Cowboys game is going to be interesting to watch. The strength of that Washington team, and they're not a good football team, but they're not a bad football team, and now they are also a well-coached football team. The NFC East is obviously terrible. But the Washington football team is getting a point against Dallas. I would suggest watching that game. The defensive line of the Washington football team versus that makeshift offensive line of the Dallas Cowboys. Andy Dalton's second game after the rumblings are coming out about anonymous players from the Cowboys locker room not liking the way they're being coached or taught. It's going to be an interesting game to watch. So I would suggest tuning into that because that has NFC East implications. We are going to see who the best team is so far when we watch Tennessee and Pittsburgh play later today. I think Tennessee is just too much for any team right now, and I love the way Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill are playing. And we'll see in a couple weeks. Real excited to watch Antonio Brown back in football, to be honest. I don't love the guy, but I think it's going to be exciting. And I'm excited to get some NBA stuff. Season will start right before Christmas.
Yeah, definitely. So I agree. I think the Washington football team and Dallas Cowboy game is definitely big for a lot of reasons, most importantly because it's got NFC East implications. We need the Cowboys to lose as many times as they possibly can right now. Pay attention to the locks. Ron, what did you give me? You gave me the Niners -2.5, or the Pats -2.5. Pats -2.5 is Aaron's lock this week. Jets +10.5 is my lock this week. Make sure you pay attention to those. Also excited about AB coming back. Let's see what we can do. Two things. Carson Wentz is not a great quarterback, and the Eagles coaching staff is most of the problem. And then my final thought, and this is with a lot of conversation I've been having a lot this week with a lot of people, producers on our show now, you, my wife, my coworkers, my friends, my family. Please do some fucking research and learn about what's happening in your municipality, from your city council all the way to whichever old guy is going to run this fucking country. Do some research. Think for yourself. Go make your own decisions. Stop watching the fucking news. Stop peddling conspiracy theories. Stop posting pictures of Joe Biden consoling his grandkids and saying he's a pedophile. For the love of God, everybody, please. If you have a concern about a person, whether you hate them or you love them, whether it's on their side or your side, do your own research, come up with your own thought, and have conversations with people that disagree with you. That's the final thing I've got, Ron.
I got you. And make sure you do vote when it comes down to it. Because
vote. I'm sorry, I didn't say that.
All this talk, we can do all this talk back and forth and make our points on Facebook. But if you're doing that, make sure it actually counts. So that's all we got for Big Facts. Excited for a good week 7. We'll see how we do, Just. We'll be back on Wednesday. Follow us on Instagram and on our Facebook page at Big Facts, and we'll also be on Spotify and every streaming platform that you might listen to podcasts on. We have a great editing team at White Horse Media Group that's going to be putting some great clips together for us, so everything's going to get an uptick. We want to thank them for helping us out, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday. I'm Aaron Barrison. That's Justin Everett. You guys have a good Sunday.
Peace.